Well, it was just wild to see how many different ways he would compose. Like, often with that band, he'd bring in a lyric sheet. He had
Wow,
the words, and we'd start there,
really?
you
Wow.
know. Yeah. And sometimes he'd come in, it was everything. And sometimes it would come in with a guitar riff, like a rock and roll guitar riff, but then he would hand you a sheet of music, which was a classical piece of music, and that was going to be the middle section of the song. And he would figure out how to get from there to there and how to make. He was brilliant. He was so
Right,
brilliant.
sure. Yeah.
Other things would be, um, you could tell he wrote a marimba just by the way it was, or keyboard like piano. Um, Certain way things just laid. Other things were just obviously guitar based. Then he had a whole synclavier world too going on too. And in '88 he incorporated he took the synclavier on tour,
Well,
but used it in an improvisational sense. Um, you know, like Bobby Martin could trigger it, Ed Mann could trigger it, or I could trigger it
yeah.
in a solo, and he wouldn't tell us what sounds or patches were in it, and he would just give you a certain cue, a point, and so you were controlling this thing now. You didn't know what was
So
going to come
cool.
out,
That's
but I
incredible.
could improvise around it. Sometimes I'd hit a pad and a whole string quartet piece would start. Other times it might be trumpets or blazing guitars or just bells or whatever.
Wow.
And again, that was fun to react to. But yeah, no, he composed in all sorts of ways,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And sometimes with a odd time
Yeah, yeah, sure.
pattern, like a Bulgarian kind of rhythm or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
incredible.
And the band could play the classical stuff too. Sometimes it would just be a classical piece that he wrote. We play that.
Hmm.
Rock and roll, jazz, everything.
Yeah. How is he as a band
Uh,
leader? I mean, like towards the guys.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he was one of those. I don't know if there's that many guys in the band have talked about this before, but he was such a strong leader. In the jazz world, I look at like Miles Davis as being a great leader.
Yeah.
You know, um, and he really ran the band. You know what I mean? Like you'd see Miles on stage and go up to a soloist and put his hand on his shoulder or something, right?
Yeah.
You could tell he was in charge, even though they could improvise. But he would still he'd be directing it live on stage. That's what I felt with Miles, and Frank definitely did that.
Hmm.
Um,
Did he tell you
he
what to
just had
play
this
as a
amazing
drummer? Or did you have like a
uh,
carte blanche more or less or
both.
both? Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
was it was
Sometimes, yeah.
both.
Yeah.
Certain pieces would have like sometimes the drum lick would be the hook of the song, or go along with the hook of the song. Other things were totally wide open, and certain and he had this great balance where some of the classical music was pretty dense,
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
fast stuff or polyrhythmic, and then it would come to a wide open guitar solo, just F Lydian, or you know what I mean? Like it would just be really open and free. Then you go back to the crazy, the more dense stuff. So because of
Uh,
I always thought, well, if you just had a whole night of all that classical stuff, it'd be too much. It'd be just hard to concentrate for that long. But when the guitar solos were so open and they were long and they were sometimes on one or two chords or just a mode,
yeah.
it just made the stuff breathe.
Well,
But yeah, he
incredible.
composed in all sorts of ways, and that was amazing watching that, how he could take. And also, he hired guys in the guys in his band wouldn't normally play together, because we get like I was in the band, Steve I was there, and he was really influenced by Hendrix and
Exactly. Yeah.
Frank as a guitar player. Tommy Mars seemed like he was influenced by Art Tatum. You know what I mean? And I don't know, he had his own
Yeah.
world.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, Ed Mann was a really good drummer too. He played kind of like John Bonham style drums, but amazing classical percussionist and really into a lot of ethnic music. So you get all these characters who wouldn't normally even be in a band together, but he was able to arrange it and figure out what people did really well, then feature that within
Mm.
his music. one of the questions at the audition was, "What do you do that's fantastic?"
Oh shit! What did you answer?
And it's just wide open. It could be, you know,
Wow.
could be anything. But what's some special talent do you have? It could go beyond music too. But if you
Yeah.
had something, he would definitely feature it. He'd
Mm.
write for these players, and even in the guitar solo, they say maybe just one guitar, one keyboard, and bass, drums. That's it. Other times it'd be the whole horn section
Yeah.
and everybody.
How did you end
Great
up on that
arrange.
audition, by the way?
A friend of mine, Kevin Brandon, who's a really great bass player,
Ah,
he
okay.
auditioned before me and with a drummer friend of his, and that didn't work out. But he called me the next day and said, "Here's Frank's number. You should call him."
Wow.
It was just
Okay.
open cattle call.
Wow. Shit. And how was the first audition? I mean, what did you play? What did you have to play? Or
The audition, it's a long story, but I'll try to make it short. So you had to get through the reading process first, and most people didn't pass that.
so he gave you the
Because
black page or something, or kind of like that, or
Black Page was on their Drowning Witch interlude, just the
yeah,
hard sections of pieces,
yeah,
Alien Orifice,
yeah,
what letter B or something, the hard parts. Um, Part of Mo and Herb's Vacation, which is the hardest piece I've
yeah,
ever seen.
exactly. Yeah, that's
It's a clarinet concerto with the drums in unison with the clarinet
that's
in the
crazy. Yeah.
first movement of it. So most people just didn't get past that. So because you had to read and you couldn't fake it. It's classical, it's black and white. So I couldn't play it perfectly, but I played enough of it right where he thought I had potential, and I guess I did better than the other guys. So um, then my audition was over 3 days,
Wow, really?
so like
That-
really long. And Ed Mann was there, Tommy Mars. Um, I think Scott Tunis got the gig like or a couple days before I did. So different bass players at first, but then Scott was there. Steve Vai, those were the guys, and they had been auditioning for 3 weeks, so they were all kind of very burnt out, ready to like,
man,
come on, let's move on. you know.
shit, man.
But yeah,
Wow.
so it was a reading. Then it was all playing at odd times, like 21 and 19, stuff like that. Then for a long time, then soloing over it and playing, reggae and 7 or 13 and ska and all the different fields. You would just see what you could do and what you couldn't do.
Right. How
You
did you
get
learn?